Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Rosabel Unscripted podcast, where nothing is off limits and everything is from the heart. Today, I'm very honored to sit down with a woman who truly lives and breathes creativity in every sense of the word. Her name is Debra Hillard. She's a painter, speaker, healer, designer, and also a spiritual conduit. What really moved me about what she does is the way she uses art as a sacred transmission, not just something to look at, but something to actually feel, something to transform through. From her early years as a bodybuilder to the luxurious creation she now calls raptures, Deborah's journey is all about using the physical body and the senses as a doorway to the soul. So let's welcome the incredible Debra Hillard. How are you, Debra?
I am great. And thank you for that wonderful introduction.
No, thank you. I am very honored to have you here. I'm so excited to have a conversation. Cannot wait to unwrap all the things you gotta show us. I am very interested about your work. You do have a very rich layered journey as an artist, you bodybuilder, life coach, spiritual guide. So if someone asks you today, who are you? How would you answer that?
A month ago, I might have answered differently. But today, what I'm going to say is that at the heart of everything, I am a healer. Being a healer takes on so many faces. So I am priestess, I am shaman, I am witch, but all of that is still held in the context of being a healer. I've realized in the last number of months that I'm being called to be a healer, to step up in that capacity for myself and embody all the aspects of who I am in that healing.
Wow. Is that something that you just discovered or is something that you known for a long time or wanted to get into?
I'm not a healer out of a business decision or a brand. It wasn't something I decided to be. Being a healer is like picking up an ancient thread that was woven into my soul long before it ever entered my body. And it has shown up throughout my life in different ways. You mentioned that I was a bodybuilder and a trainer and a coach. All of that was under a bigger umbrella of being a healer, but I didn't realize it at the time. All of that came about as a way to heal myself. And it took on the face that it needed to take on at that time. But I didn't call myself a healer at that time. It wasn't until very recently that I realized through my own spiritual process that I was being called to step up in that capacity.
Wow, that's an incredible realization. I am a nurse practitioner, and I just had a conversation with my husband last night. He asked me, what brought you to? It's so interesting. Sometimes we do things in life and we just don't know exactly why we do. We may have an idea, thinking deeply, why did I choose to go into the field that I am? And you mentioned the word woven in the threads of something that comes from, you mentioned the word ancient, something that was before you even existed. And some of us, I include myself, maybe don't realize sometimes we just have this feeling that it was a call, although I don't recall anybody saying, you gotta do it. And then you start wondering, why is it that I do what I do? A very interesting concept.
Our doing in life comes from who we truly are, from our being, then it's a natural outgrowth. It's not necessarily a business decision or a,
Right.
when we are being who we truly are, then whatever we do just flows from that. It may not be what makes sense in traditional terms. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to feel.
Right. I am curious. So you are your own boss, right?
Yes.
Have you ever been your own boss, or do you have somebody?
I'm what I call unemployable. I've worked lots of jobs, but I was never comfortable working under someone else. I usually a troublemaker because I was always attempting to make things different.
Changed what already, and it's so hard.
I have never been one to fit into systems from the very beginning. I've been creating my own path, just who I am.
That is commendable. In my case, for so long, I felt like I've been swimming against the current until you get to that moment in life when you realize you can't change systems that have been in place for so long. It's now time to change or move away. But the reality for many of us working, are you familiar with that movie Office Space? I watched it a second time yesterday, and it's about this 8 to 5 engineer, 3 employees who start wondering what life is about. They're working for a boss who doesn't appreciate them. I started watching it last night because I wanted to understand the motivation behind the movie. Anyways, all this to say, what an incredible conversation we got here.
I'm kind of curious, now that you bring it up. You said you're a nurse practitioner. Do you
Yes,
work
I
for
am.
yourself?
No, I don't. I work for a big conglomerate, for a big hospital system.
In my work, what I strive to do with people that come to me is help them remember who they truly are. There's no preconceived notion on my part of who that person is or should be. It's not about, am I doing what's right for me? It's more, what is the essence of who I am?
Absolutely.
When someone realizes their true essence, no matter where they place themselves in life, whether it's working in a big conglomerate or for themselves, the key is to be who you are. So just because you're working in a big conglomerate doesn't mean you can't be fully who you are. As who we are gets bigger, the shoulds of who we think we need to be take up less space because we're getting bigger. Our circumstances naturally begin to shift around us to accommodate our truth. Maybe one day you will, and maybe right now you're exactly where you need to be to discover more of who you really are.
Absolutely. That was a conversation I was having with my husband yesterday. He said, "Do you think you're really who you are?" And I said, "Yeah." I wrote a book, and one chapter is called Belonging, Not Fitting. There's a big situation with the whole fitting. Me being born in Colombia, South America, I've been here in America for 22 years. There's all this change, the culture, this and that. You're too loud, you're this, you're that, all these things that we're supposed to be, because when someone looks at you and they have this preconceived ideas, or I'm Hispanic, so I'm supposed to be this way. But then I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, I'm nothing like people think. I'm very attuned to a word that I love very much. It's called individuality. I love to see people for who they are, and I want people to get to know me as a person and not assume things. This conversation is amazing because I was just talking to my husband about how I conduct myself in a very respectful manner, but never forgetting who I am and not being afraid to show who I am, even though when I go to some meetings, I see people behaving in a very linear way. For example, the big boss is speaking and everybody's like, oh, careful, can I say? And sometimes I'm just like, well, why are we afraid? As long as I'm being respectful, I'm going to speak my mind. I have the right to show my opinion. Some people are like, oh, I can't believe she said that. I'm like, was it immoral, unethical, illegal? No. So then I'm being, sometimes it's not easy being you, right?
Trust me.
Exactly, because we live in a world that still we haven't somehow figured out how to be accepting others, understanding that we're not all alike. There's a system, but we should be more accepting of the differences. That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah, I've never fit I didn't fit in my family growing up. I've never been part of a group or a clique. I didn't fit in school. I've never fit. So you talk about belonging. In my life's process, I've had to discover my own sense of belonging,
Exactly.
where that is. And
Yes.
it's not anywhere that already exists outside myself. I belong to myself in the world that feels true and real to me. And then I do what I can to expand that world so that more and more of it shows up outside myself.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I often tell this story about how created this podcast. It was all the idea of sharing that book that I wrote about the courage to succeed. The more I think about it, the title should be The Courage to Be You, you know? To me, that's success, being comfortable with who you are, no matter where you are in life. To me, that's freedom, right? The more I realize when I get in touch with people like you and have these conversations, to me, this is beautiful. It is a way of finding the opportunity to communicate with people alike, even people who don't necessarily think alike, but with whom we can share different opinions. Something I feel I cannot do in other settings because of their time or professional boundary. So, this is why I created this space.
You create your own place of belonging, your own
Absolutely.
world that feels right and true to you. I don't resonate with most of what I see in the culture around me.
Same here.
That's just not, it doesn't feel real to me. So I have spent my life creating my world. That's what a lot of my art started out to be when I was a child, is creating. I would plaster the walls and the ceiling in my room with things that made me feel like me. They felt like home. And I'm still creating my world, my spaces as places that I want to live in, where I can fully be myself.
I find it such a healthy way to cope with our feelings because some people going through the same things choose ways that perhaps are not healthy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I think. And you also mentioned art is a form of communication and it's a way for you to channel your spiritual messages. I would like for you to walk us through that process. What does that look like for you?
Well, my spiritual practice allows me to sense things and receive communication from the unseen world. And I've been like that since I was a child. I've always sensed and knew things that I had no idea at the time where they came from. I first noticed that I was channeling guidance and messages from spirit about 25 years ago. I had a really serious car accident. At the time, I was a bodybuilder, a trainer, and a coach. My body was so damaged that I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do the physical work that I was doing anymore. And to help myself heal, I picked up a paintbrush again, and it had been about 20 years since I'd painted. But I started with my left hand because the right side of my body was so damaged from the accident that I couldn't use it. Being very right-handed, very right side dominant, I had no control with my left hand at all. And so I began to notice that what was coming through looked and felt very different than how I knew myself to be. At the time, I was intimidating looking. I was big, strong, muscular, powerful. And I had also walled myself, guarded myself because I was living in an abusive marriage for a very long time. I grew up in an abusive environment as well. And I had learned how to protect myself. So what was coming through me or all these very feminine colors, forms, was like, who the heck is painting? And I knew something was trying to wake me up. Like I was seeing something about myself that I hadn't seen before. So I began writing on my paintings what the messages that were coming through. I realized that the part of me that had been guarding was out of commission. The very feminine, powerful part of me, the real power, was coming through. When I really knew that that's what was happening, I began sharing those paintings and the writing with my clients. I thought they were just for me. And then I had people in tears recognizing themselves. That began a process for me of using my painting and writing to listen more closely to what was coming through. It kept pouring through me. And when everything else was falling apart, as it did many times, it was that really showed me the way. It's part of what I do now when I'm working with other people. I am able to listen, sense, and hear. And when I say hear, I don't mean necessarily sound, but I get truth for them. I can translate that into whatever images start to come through. If I'm working in fabrics, it's what texture needs to be there. Do they need to wrap themselves in whatever? I cannot explain how I couldn't show somebody. There's no technique. I never know what's going to come through.
It's just giving your spirit the freedom, just like
Well,
creativity.
it's spirit using the gifts that I was given in healing. And when I say healing, I mean speaking and creating truth.
You know, when you say that about the gifts we were given, I believe that all of us in some form or fashion have been given gifts. For example, there are certain things that I know I'm capable of, but it's almost like you just put a cap on it and put it away for whatever reason, whether it's internal fears. And sometimes other people can recognize that and say, hey, I think you'll be good at that. And you think about it and you say, yeah, but I don't know. Maybe at the time you don't feel like someday it will come out, right? That's what I talk a lot about, that freedom we give when they just say, just kind of like what you mentioned with the left and the right part of your body. Sometimes you go through situations in life that seem like the circumstances. We have no other choice but to just let things be. And sometimes when we don't go through that, maybe we'll still be holding onto things, if you know what I'm
I know
trying to say.
what you're saying. Interesting that this is coming up because there is a process in shamanic wisdom and tradition called dismemberment. Essentially, when you reach a certain point in your journey where your soul is ready to evolve to the next, it involves a certain type of death. It is the death of what you're holding in place. It could be like for me, when I had that accident, it was the death of a certain aspect of myself that was held in the right side of my body. And it freed up an evolution into a new awareness of who I was. For me, I have been through many dismemberment, trust me. When it comes to my physical body, most of my issues, my illnesses, my accidents, the surgeries I've been through, all of the trauma has been on the right side of my body. I sense that my access to more of my truth comes through my left. So the way I see this is our soul's wisdom and commitment to truth and evolution, that we orchestrate the circumstances in our lives to support our soul's journey towards greater freedom to be who we truly are. And sometimes that involves dying to who we are, which is what my life has been like.
Absolutely.
You mentioned something that made me think about our gifts and keeping them under wraps. I have been an artist my entire life. When I was a little child, if you had asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I knew that I was an artist, just inherently knew it. But my family did not support my art. They threw it out in the trash. They totally discounted it. I married a man who did the same thing. I had this incredible gift that nobody acknowledged. So sometimes we have these gifts, but the circumstances around us, the people around us, don't support who we truly are. And
Absolutely.
so we take those gifts and we box them up and put them away because our lives don't support living.
Them. I've been there. I've done that. Can you tell us about that 12-week program that you developed? I want to know what inspired you. How does the body become a tool for that transformation?
There are many ways that our bodies are tools for transformation. After the car accident, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to be a bodybuilder and a trainer again. I knew that I had wisdom and experience to pass on, and I needed to find a way to do it. I also knew that the work I was doing with people as a trainer and a coach was about so much more than what it appeared to be. So as I was healing from the accident and looking at what's next, I came up with the idea of expanding on what I was already doing, because as a trainer, I was more of an artist and a soul guide than a trainer. I was already experiencing my clients' transformations through guiding them to use their body in that way. I'll give you an example. I would have someone do an exercise like a leg extension on a machine. There were clients that would be brought to tears just from that movement. What I saw and felt was that they were holding trauma in that part of their body and it needed to be released. So I was already guiding them in that way. And I knew that the transformations I was seeing in my clients were about life transformations. We were doing it in the gym. So I came up with this program. It was called Being Physical. And it was about who you are as a physical being, but it was connected to who we are on a much larger scale. I didn't call it spirit back then, but that's really what it was. I took all my years, because I had been through of transformational work on my own, a lot of training. I took all of that and my years as a trainer and a coach and my own personal experience of transforming myself through training, what that did, because it literally saved my life. And we worked with weeks of looking at your values, looking at who you were on a microscopic scale, delving into why do you eat what you eat? Why do you choose the people in your life? They're doing the work that you're doing. How are your relationships supporting or not supporting you? And then I would take people into the gym. I had this process that I developed called the breakthrough process. And I would put people on a leg press because it was something safe and involved their whole body. And I would ask them to push through more weight than they ever believed they could possibly use. But first, I had them set an intention. It was, I'm going to do this to show myself this, to break through this belief, this idea, whatever it was. And I knew what they were capable of physically. I never asked them to do anything that wasn't safe or anything I wouldn't do myself. And my clients trusted me implicitly. People were discovering a power and strength in themselves that they never knew they had. As a result, people were leaving abusive relationships, starting businesses, expanding businesses, writing books, doing things they never believed they could do because they saw through their body more of the truth of who they were. And we spent 12 weeks together as a group, and I only did it in small groups, no more than about 15 people at a time, sharing with one another, crying, laughing, screaming, and just expanding the possibility of what it could mean to be a physical being on this earth and live with the kind of truth and power and strength you really had within you. It was an amazing, amazing experience. And it came out of one of those dismemberments that, like, I can't be who I was. So what's possible now?
How did you transition from working through the body through fitness into now working the body through fabric, texture, color? I want to know how raptures, is that how you call it? How did it come to life?
Well, that was another dismemberment. I was at the height of my training, my bodybuilding, my physical being. I left that abusive marriage and found the love of my life. Then my body crashed. I got so sick that I had to close my business, move out of my apartment. I lost every shred of identity that I had built over all of those years as the muscle was just dissolving, melting off my body from being bedridden. I felt like I was dying. It was my painting and my writing that kept me going. As I moved through that and got myself more functional, I knew there was something other than what I'd been doing. I knew I wasn't going to be a bodybuilder again. I didn't want to be a trainer. And I had to let go of the idea of being a coach. Something was trying to come through me, and it was a much more spiritual path. Years went by and I got breast cancer. And I couldn't paint on the large canvases that I was painting on. And I didn't know if I was facing my own death. I began asking that question again. What now? And what kept coming through was do what you love. Love painting, But there was something more, something about the healing power of physical touch. Once again, it was bringing me back to my body and needing touch. And I remembered another ancient thread. It had to do with the feel of fabrics and beads and jewels. And I wasn't sure where it came from, but it didn't really matter. I began making myself a sacred shawl. And I took one of my paintings that is very dear to me. It's called Depths of Heaven. And I designed a fabric with that painting. I got it printed in the shape of a shawl, and I began stringing beads one by one for 32 hours over the course of weeks, everything by hand. I brought myself back. And when I wrapped myself in that shawl, I felt a presence. Looking back, I would say that presence was my own spirit. And there was just a knowing in me that this was a path I needed to follow. I just started creating things with fabrics. My sister, who lives on the other side of the country, was having a really challenging time, and I couldn't be there. I felt like I wanted to wrap my arms around her and give her a hug. So I had this idea of creating this pillow, something that she could hug and know that I was giving her that hug. And I sent it to her. She was so moved that I knew there was something in that that wasn't just for her. It was for me and for everybody else who needed that kind of comfort. I started making these pillows, and I call them booby pillows because in the tradition I was brought up in, a booby is a Jewish grandmother, one that gives you this unconditional love, who is always there for you, no judgment. And the pillows expanded into medicine blankets, and then on until I realized that my path was very much about this idea of wrapping someone in this field of energy, this divine presence of comfort where you could just allow your entire being to rest and feel safe. I was creating them and speaking about them for everyone else. It wasn't until recently that I realized I've been creating everything that I need for myself. It's what I've always needed. I've been creating my own healing.
That's beautiful. How long since you were working as a bodybuilder, and now when did you start working with fabrics? How long ago?
The real work began in 2017 with the breast cancer. I had dabbled a little bit before that, but started seriously in 2017. I haven't been a bodybuilder since the early 2000s when I got really sick. It was 2007 or 2006 when I had to stop everything.
You've written a book?
Yes, I have.
Is it out or is it coming out?
That it's being final editing process now, hoping it will be out by this fall. It's called Remembering Myself, A Journey Through the Threads of Time. It's a very unusual book, very unusual story. It's the story of the person I now call my mother. It's the woman I was for the first 70 years of my life and the person that died in my first shamanic ceremony. I felt compelled to honor this journey because everything she lived through and overcame allowed me to be the person I am now. The book is not a linear account, but it contains many of her paintings, poetry, and writing will give you a picture of her journey to pick up the threads of who she truly was and put them back into some sort of a semblance of truth.
And let me ask you this, for people who feel disconnected from their creative or spiritual self, where did you suggest they start? What is one simple thing that they can do today to get back?
Are you referring to your creativity or your spirituality?
Either, I mean, or is it two separate entities that you have to create differently?
Well, not. um, the first thing to realize is that we are all creators. We are creating our lives, our reality, with every breath we take, every word we speak. We are creating every single day and have been our entire lives. So when somebody says to me, "Oh, I'm not creative," I say, "Well, let's look at what you have created thus far." And that's where I'd probably tell someone to start if they want to reconnect with their creativity, because there is no real difference between your creativity and your spirituality. We are spiritual beings. It's who we are.
Absolutely. Yes.
So I would say reflect on what you have created thus far. Have you created a family? Have you created a home? Have you created a meal lately? Have you created your work, a child? Have you manifested friendships? It doesn't matter. We have created everything in our world. And then look at what you would like to create that you don't currently have in your life. Your creativity may not show up in painting a painting or creating with fabrics or poetry. Everybody has different gifts. Look at where yours are and then create those to be larger in your life. Maybe your creativity lies in your ability to be with people and make them feel comfortable and safe. Maybe it's in your ability to grow plants so that they flourish. It can show up in any number of ways. But the first thing to do is to stop the belief in your head that you're not creative. We're born as creators.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with that. And I like the idea of how we can think of creativity and spirituality as separate entities.
Our spiritual energy is our life force, but it is also our creative force. Where if anyone has any idea of a divine presence, whatever that happens to be, know that we are sparks of that divine presence creating on earth here in whatever way we choose to. That is our spiritual connection to the truth of who we are as creators. And it's just how we choose to use it that shows up as the vehicles of our creativity.
Absolutely. Deborah, is there anything I have not asked you that you would like to share with the audience?
There's so much I could share. I think we've touched on a lot here. I think if I could leave your listeners with anything, it would be healing can look a number of ways. Sometimes when we experience dis-ease in our lives, it's there to show us who needs our love and attention, what needs to be seen and honored. When I speak about truth, it doesn't look any certain way, just like healing doesn't. As a healer, priestess, shaman, creator, artist, whatever you want to call me, it's all the same. It's all about returning to our essence. For anyone listening, if you are feeling some discontent, like something is missing, I want you to know that you are not broken. Your soul is trying to reach you. It wants you to listen and honor something that you may not be aware of yet. That's really the essence.
That is beautifully said. One of the things I realized is that when it comes to a process of discovery, it feels like it comes in layers. It's not like one day I discovered myself and that was the end of it. We peel this layer, and then just when we think, oh, I got it, then something else. And there's so much depth that we're not even aware of.
That's right.
What does being unscripted mean to you in your life right now?
Oh, this is the perfect time to ask this. I'm in a process right now, and it is another dismemberment process where I have had to surrender the entire script of how I thought this time in my life was going to look. I've also had to surrender any idea of what I thought my own healing was going to look like. Unscripted to me means I am open and willing and even loving the uncertainty of not knowing what my life is going to look like from day to day, from hour to hour. And in that, I'm discovering more and more of who I am that I thought I already knew. But without that idea that I had that my book is coming out, I've got raptures, I'm going to be doing soul portraits. This is what it's going to look like. This is my plan. The plan is gone. And that is both freeing and for a while it was terrifying. It's not terrifying anymore. Unscripted just means I am open and free for whatever is coming. And I realize that what's coming is not like someone is doing something to me. Everything that's coming now, my soul is inviting. I don't have to script it. I don't have to know what it's going to be. I'm just free to allow my soul to take charge and create whatever's coming next.
And that is freedom right there.
That is freedom. Yeah.
Deborah, how can people connect with you? Where can we find your work and look more into what you do?
I have a website for my paintings and prints and an overall website that houses just about everything that I'm up to right now. My writing, my publications in magazines, my YouTube channel, my raptures, you name it. So you can connect with me through my websites. You can also connect with me if you send me an email. Anybody that wants to work with me to explore their journey further, whether it be through a soul rapture or a soul portrait or something that has no name yet, I'm very happy to explore that. I love working with people one-on-one, and I know that whoever contacts me, it's because they're ready. You can find me on social media. I'm on most of the social media channels. I'm posting on YouTube about the healing journey that I'm on. Anybody would like to my mailing list, you'll be the first to know when my book is ready. And there will be
Perfect.
autographed copies available.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, your light, your wisdom. This conversation reminded me, and hopefully all of us, how art and energy, body and soul are not separate. They are always dancing together. It's up to us how we make melody with it.
I love that. That's beautiful. Yes. Want to
Say thank you to our listeners. If something stirred inside of you today, follow it. Creativity, a birthright. Healing can come through so many unexpected textures, in your case, for the fabrics. And love, and when love is wrapped around us, and we also learn how to wrap our loved ones in it because it's so important.
If anyone is listening, know that it's not an accident that you're listening today.
Absolutely. I don't believe in accidents. And sometimes I share stories, and my guest said, that's exactly what I was just thinking or talking to so and so yesterday. And I'm like, it's amazing. Maybe that's why I'm so attracted to what I've been doing here, to have these conversations, to build this community and what I call finding your tribe. Because I think at the end of the day, we're all on a quest. We may not know what to call it. Some of us may not even have a title or name for it. But eventually, after peeling those layers, we might find out what a beauty it is when we find what that is, when we have that freedom. And then also the purpose of why I call my show Unscripted. Because even though a lot of times I'm guilty of this, we write scripts in our life. We have ideas of what we want to do, but it's up to us not to be so rigid, because when we're rigid, we're not allowing the universe to allow for those inputs, ideas, and creativity. In my own life, I've seen that happen.
It takes so much courage to just trust, to let go of the titles and identities and scripts. And I always find that what I speak is what I need to hear. What I teach
Exactly
is
right.
what I need to learn. What I've created is what I've needed in my own healing. There's no accident. We are all
There's
on it.
no. And you mentioned something very early when you were talking about when you created that group, what you were doing through bodybuilding. You mentioned that you talked about an intention. Very recently, I was brought, I always heard the word intention, but I honestly never knew exactly what it meant until I started doing an exercise. Actually, 2 weeks ago, probably today, when I heard this, start your day with an intention. And I realized, what is the intention? And when I put that intention, my week was all the things that I could expect and even more, because I was literally working with that intention.
That's what I mean about being the creator of your own life.
Exactly.
When you
That's exactly right.
when you speak it, you are literally creating your own reality.
Yep. The vice versa is also true. All those other things that happen to us, perhaps not so positive, is because somehow we had spoken into it. We have believed and created so
Well,
much yet.
Taken what's been spoken to us and we've taken it in as truth. And then we keep repeating it to ourselves, and it's not true. All the belief that we have about ourselves, who we are, who we're not, what we're capable of, they're not our creation. That's what was given to us very early on. And we spend most of our lives unlearning that. And if we're lucky, we get to the point where we pare it down to who we really are. And it's not anything that we were told.
Yes, very, very true. So for now, and as always, thank you everybody for tuning in to Rosabel Unscripted. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious, open, and stay unscripted. Thank you, Debra.
Oh, thank you so much. This was really a joy.